And let me screen share. So I, for one, hate death by PowerPoint. So I hope this will be really interactive. I'm going to leave the bulk of the time for Q&A, and I will go as general or as deep and specific as you guys want, okay? So let me start here. Let me just tell you a little bit about my journey. Let me get back here. Okay, so everyone asks, how did I know I wanted to do optometry? What did I do to get into optometry school? So I actually never planned on going to college at all. When I was in, so I didn't take like any ACTs. I even missed a third of my junior year. I was definitely not trying to prep my resume. Well, my best friend in high school did not want to go to college alone. So she filled out my application for me and I got in. So then I went to undergrad. We actually ended up switching out of our school altogether and came back home. So it was actually kind of pointless for me to go with her anyway. She didn't stay up there very long. But while I was in school, I was thinking, I don't want to get all of these student loans and then get a degree in a position that was hard to get a job. I didn't want to have a lot of student loans and no job. So I knew I wanted to go into the health field. I was always a STEM kid and liked math and science anyway. So I was thinking in my first or second year, it was my first and second year that I was deciding what to do. I considered dermatology, dental, pharm, and OBGYN. And at the time, my older sister was in optometry school already. So I actually knew a lot about the career and decided because she was in school for optometry that I did not want to go to optometry school because we thought it would be kind of redundant to have two eye doctors in the family. We were trying to diversify a little bit. But I eliminated all of these other careers for various reasons, and I kept coming back to optometry. And so one day I called her and asked her if she thought it would be crazy if I did this. And she's like, why the heck not? And we just can't ever work together because we didn't want to compromise our relationship as sisters. And so that because I did that transition of schools, I did 5 years for undergrad. I got my major in biology. I did not do a minor. And then I did 4 years optometry school. That's kind of universal across the board. All optometry schools, I believe, are 4 years. They've added quite a few since I've graduated, so that might not be 100% true, but I still think it's true. I went to ICO in Chicago. I honestly picked that school because I wanted to get out of Ohio. So I did not want to do OSU. I thought Indiana was very similar to Ohio. I wanted to go to a big city. And I was planning on the West Coast actually, but then my younger sister got pregnant. So I knew I wanted to stay local to be around my niece. So I wanted a close enough drive. And I want to say that it's perfectly valid to pick schools based on things like location as well. ICO is a great school. I think it's usually in the top 3 in the country. So I think I made a good pick. But then in addition to, it's usually 4 years undergrad. Some people can do it in 3. 4 years optometry school. There's a 1 to 2 year optional residency, which I did my 1 year in ocular disease. You can also get an optional fellowship, which I did. And you can also get an optional board certification, which I have not done. Board certification isn't widely adopted in optometry just yet. So honestly, for optometry, board certification is just kind of like paying extra money for not a whole lot of benefit. So I don't know what you guys know about me, but me specifically, I own Eye Care on the Square. It's not letting me play this for some reason. Let's see. There we go. So I own my own practice in Cincinnati. My sister that I mentioned before was in optometry school at the time, opened the office cold in 2013. I purchased it in 2018. She stayed on as an associate. So we literally just flip-flop positions. Which is kind of funny because we swore we would never work together. And here we are literally exchanging businesses and working together side by side. But that's what I do currently. And I wanted to touch a little bit on pros and cons of optometry in general. So the reasons I kept coming back to optometry. So in my head in undergrad, I thought There won't be any emergencies. I'll touch on that in a second. I won't have to tell anyone they're dying. I don't want to deliver this horrible news over and over. I felt like it would like destroy my morale. I knew I didn't want to do surgery. I like my patients to be awake. I want to develop relationships with them. I wanted the type of career that I would see the same patients back over and over and really get to know them. Work-life balance, it's really great if you ever want to be a mom, and I did at the time. I am a mom now. And then it really can be life-changing for patients. This is something I didn't fully grasp when I was in undergrad, the full reaching impact we can have on a patient's entire life. The right prescription can be life-changing. Treating dry eye can be life-changing. Giving things like vision therapy can be life-changing. So honestly, life-changing for certain patients. And then cons, of course, tuition is very, very high. And it's sometimes higher than like an MD profession. And your income is likely going to be lower than, say, a surgeon. So the tuition to income balance is not the best ratio out of all of the medical fields. I don't think it's very skewed. And then we're kind of a newer profession. We're one of the younger medical professions. So that comes with a lot of challenges. We have to fight really hard for different laws. We're in legislation all the time. We're battling laws constantly. Since we are so new, we kind of have to we have to break the patterns that are existing, and it's tricky. And then we can get a lot of what do I want to say with this? There can be a lot of controversy that I did not know going into optometry school. This whole optometry versus ophthalmology feud. It's old. I hear too frequently that I'm not a real doctor, and I did not know that going into optometry school. I had no idea that was even a thing. And then e-commerce, things like 1-800 and Zenny, these are huge challenges facing optometry. So I know if you ask some of my colleagues if they would get into optometry, they would say absolutely not, because they are constantly battling 1-800 and Zenny and Warby Parker. It's really tough to be an optometrist right now. I'm going to touch on what I think the future of optometry holds, but I did want to list that in the cons that a lot of other eye doctors will mention that for sure. But for me personally, having my own practice, having my own staff, getting to work with family and build a business in a great community is just so, so valuable. So where I think the future of optometry is, I don't think it's all doom and gloom. A lot of people do, but I'm really excited about the future of optometry. I think it's the perfect time to get into it because we're starting to make a name for ourselves, and we have all of these awesome specializations. So I think that if you go into optometry, plan on specializing in something. So there are things like vision therapy, which is kind of like physical therapy for the eyes and brain. It helps fix things, binocular vision disorders like accommodative insufficiency, and all of these different issues with the eyes when your two eyes don't work as a team. If you can get them into a team again, it's absolutely life changing. You will find people that were previously labeled ADHD or learning deficient, these problems just suddenly go away. Or if they were labeled as dyslexic, it could be fixed with things like vision therapy. Truly life changing. Sports, we can do a lot of sports with hand-eye coordination and visual memory. Obviously, you can do just general optometry, which is glasses, contact lenses, and overall eye health. But I think specialization is the future. I'm going to talk about my specialty in a second. And I see the medical scope expanding. So in certain states, we can perform minor surgical procedures. We can do things like LASIK and other laser procedures like YAG capsulotomies. And I think that medical scope is just going to keep expanding. I could see in the future optometry being first line with things like high blood pressure and diabetes, because oftentimes those conditions will manifest in the eyes first. So we're going to be the ones catching it first. I could absolutely see us being the ones managing it as well. It'd be pretty easy to do. And then again, like I said, there's competition with e-com. That could mean that optometry starts to get into the e-com world a little bit more too. I think that the us being put in a corner with things like 1-800 and Zenny is going to force these other specializations, and it's going to force the scope of practice to expand. That's why I'm not doom and gloom about it. So, like I said, I think specializing is huge. I specialize specifically in dry eye. It has always been a passion of mine since residency, but what's really cool is some of these dry eye procedures that I have invested in have this extra side benefit of aesthetics. So I've accidentally fallen a little bit into the aesthetic side of things, which I never anticipated. Even 2 or 3 years ago, I would have been shocked if someone told me I was going to get into aesthetics. And it just blends beautifully with optometry. People are already asking us about things like colored contact lenses, lash serums, eye creams, cosmetics, what cosmetics are damaging to the eyes. So I already knew a little bit about that just to be able to answer my patients' questions. But the fact that we can do IPL to treat dry eye and then also get these beautiful skin benefits, I'm been very pleased with it, very excited about it. But I wanted to touch on here some other specialties that I'm thinking about getting into. Myopia control is huge. So the idea of being able to keep everyone right around a zero prescription is the future. It's totally possible. We have the science now. It's just a matter of spreading the awareness. So I do want to start dabbling in myopia control, and I want to start dabbling in specialty contact lenses and a little bit of neurovisual medicine. So that's where I see my future going. And I forgot to mention with the pros and cons. I mentioned already that I did not want to get into a field where I would have emergencies or deliver life-changing news. And what has surprised me is I absolutely deal with emergencies. Owning a private practice in a small town, everyone has my cell phone number, so I frequently get texts on Sunday at 6 o'clock that their 3-year-old busted their cornea open with a construction knife. So like I actually do have more emergencies than I ever thought. But that's also partially because I own my own practice. So I there's a lot of flexibility in the optometry world. I've also had to deliver life-changing news. I've found leukemia in the eye. I have found MS in the eye and brain tumors in the eye. So I did not fully understand the scope that optometry can provide if you're willing to do it. Now, the fact that I mentioned optometry is very flexible. You have a lot of choices. You can be a small business owner, private practice owner, entrepreneur. You could get into the retail side and the almost accessory side and get into amazing high-end frames, like $2,000 pieces of jewelry on your face. You could get into the aesthetics, and you could just be an associate working 2 or 3 days a week, go in, see a couple patients, and go home and never think about it again. If you think you wanted to go into research, there's tons of research in optometry, low vision, and all these stem cell regeneration, tons of research. Teaching, obviously, optometry schools require teachers, but also you could teach in a hospital setting, which I've also done. And then you could just work as an associate in a hospital setting, just see patients. You're usually like 8 to 4, go home, every holiday's off, every weekend's off. So tons and tons of options available to you. So tools, how do you get into optometry school? What would make you successful? A lot of people obviously ask me this. I think diversifying your resume. So they're going to get a huge stack of biology majors. How are you going to stand out from the other biology majors? I worked in a couple research labs. I also worked outside of the school, and I worked at a bank, I worked at a million restaurants, and I feel like having a little bit of real life experience is beneficial. I did a lot of volunteering, and then I also got leadership positions in some of these like pre-med clubs, tri-beta clubs. You can run for things like secretary or obviously president, vice president. But I think having a leadership position is going to help stand apart from the crowd a little bit, of course. So the OAT, to get into optometry school, you take the OAT instead of the MCAT. When I was studying for the OAT, it did not have its own special study skills or study tools. So I just got like a Kaplan MCAT and took a few practice tests. My understanding is that there are now a ton of OAT specific study skills or study tools. And I feel like you guys probably have unlimited amounts of resources for these OAT practice tools. And then my understanding is also that there are awesome YouTube interview skills. When I was interviewing, I don't even know if I had ever been on YouTube. So like it's been a little while. I don't like to think I'm that old, but I think it's getting there, right? What I did was I Googled typical practice questions. I prepared for them ahead of time, and I did it in front of my family and friends, which is wildly uncomfortable, but I think super beneficial to actually say it out loud and not just in your head. And then if you are really bold, record yourself, watch it over, find out how many times you say or like or tap your chair, tap your foot. I know I do a lot of those things too. But recording yourself and watching it is going to really highlight some issues that you are having. And I am a huge reader. I read everything. I like to read outside of my world. I don't just read optometry books. I will read all kinds. I'll read hospital books or podcast books or books in all different fields. I feel like you can glean a lot, and a lot of them are free online. So they're totally there available for you. A million podcasts out there, right? There are, when I watched it go from one optometry podcast to probably 10 or 20. There are so many optometry specific now. So you can find a podcast for pretty much anything. Listen to it on 2X and you'll fly through it. And then, of course, online courses. You guys are probably beyond sick of online courses. But me, I never did school online. And so what I do is I can find, like Yale will have business classes for free. So I can literally get educated in a topic because, for example, in optometry school, they don't teach you anything about business. Knowing that now, I should have got a business minor, but I can take some of these classes online. It's awesome. There are so many resources out there. And so I wanted to leave the floor mostly for Q&A. I'm an open book. You can ask me anything. And I do also want to throw up, obviously, these are ways to reach out to me, different social media platforms. I do have a YouTube channel, but I have not started anything yet. So if you want to, that's not the best way to contact me, I should say. Okay, so let's see if there are any questions.
I have one just to start us off. You said your specialty was dry eye stuff. Can you just go into a little more about what that is? Because I don't really know.
Yes, I would love to. And this is kind of like, I'm looking for one of my like pictures. I'll go grab one of my pictures. I'll take you with me. So I have loved dry eye because I have dry eye. I got dry eye when I was in optometry school. And like, I'm in optometry school. My sister is an optometrist, and I still did not kind of relief for years and years, probably decades. So there we go. I just got into dry eye because I have dry eye and I'm trying to solve my own dry eye through this learning process, right? So I'll give you the rundown of what I tell my patients about dry eye. Everyone has 60 to 80 oil glands in their upper and lower lids. And if these get clogged, that leads to dry eye. But the concern that I know now is that they can permanently die off and you can get this end stage anatomy loss. So I have decently end stage anatomy loss. And this is as like, once they're gone, they're gone. I mean, they are doing stem cell injection research now, which is super cool. This is where I say, I think optometry, the future of optometry is awesome. We are going to be like injecting PRP into these little glands to regrow them. But when these are gone, this is life-changing dry eye. Your eyes feel like they're burning like the Sahara Desert all the time. I have patients on oral pain meds and antidepressants, and they still can't get out of bed because their eyes hurt so bad. There have been multiple cases of suicide from how bad this hurts. So to me, it's it's life-changing. We're giving people's lives back being able to take care of this. So how do we do it? We have to unclog them, kind of like Roto-Rooter. So I have all kinds of different tools that can unclog these oil glands. And then we have to get to the root cause of what clogged them in the first place. So most of the time it's inflammation. So I talk about nutraceuticals a lot and nutrition a lot to try to calm inflammation. So we can get it in the optometry world, we could do like functional nutritional testing. You can get your fellowship in ocular nutrition. It's kind of wild how many specialties there are within the optometry world, and newer coming out all the time. Like I said, aesthetics in optometry is totally new. But what I've realized is the technology, the investing in the technology and this kind of stuff it's just been life-changing for patients.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, because you decided to like specialize kind of in that area and buy this new tech, because I shadowed someone who was kind of bummed out that they had like the old school machinery, they had a manual lensometer and all this stuff. Do you see you get more patients specifically like for dry eye? Like, do they seek you out for that stuff?
Yes. So what has been happening lately is they'll seek me out. I don't even know how they find me. Obviously, Google SEO is huge, but I really pop up mostly for primary eye care, not necessarily dry eye. I've been working on my Google SEO for dry eye, but they're finding me, I think, because they're looking for the pieces of equipment I have. So they might type like LipiFlow doctor and I'll pop up, or they might type IPL doctor and I'll pop up. Dry eye patients are smarter than most old school eye doctors. They know more about dry eye than anybody. It's amazing. So they will start searching those things. And then I've also become a bit of a referral center for other eye doctors to send to me. And I actually have now begun getting referrals from eye surgeons, because that's where it's kind of like a lot of people think I went to optometry school because I could not get into medical school. And I never even considered ophthalmology. I did consider medical school with derm and OB-GYN, but I decided against those as career paths. So it kind of blows me away when people say that, because now I have the surgeons referring to me. We just have different specialties. They don't want to do dry eye. They don't like dry eye. They're not successful with dry eye, and they don't own the equipment I own. I don't own surgical tools. Like, we do such different things, but it's kind of it's going to be a really, really big deal, because you guys are all sitting here on Zoom, and when we look at screens, we blink 75% less than we should. So we're creating an entire generation of dry eye patients right now. So I'm also lecturing to other eye doctors, like, please help me out here. I cannot be the only one in Cincinnati doing this, because it is going to be massive in 5 or 10 years. So this is literally why I'm on TikTok. If anybody follows me on TikTok, is because people need to know that they need to blink. Nobody thinks it's a big deal. And so I've become a referral center. I'm hoping to eventually get a residency location so I can also teach. We don't learn a lot about dry eye specifically in optometry school. So I want to be able to teach a deep dive into that specialty too.
Good evening. I'd like to ask a question too. I mentioned earlier in the chat that I was listening from across the Atlantic in the UK. So I'm in South West England right now. So it's very late for me, but I'm very happy.
Thank you for staying up with us.
So in the UK, optometry is set up a little bit differently. It's sort of integrated into the retail aspect. So you'd almost like you guys have lens crafters and that sort of thing in the shopping malls. I worked for a corporate multiple.
Specsavers.
Boots opticians. So we were integrated into the Walgreens Boots Alliance about 5 or so years ago. So I'm working in a practice environment as a pre-reg optom now. Are you guys struggling with pressure from the online market coming in, as in sort of glasses direct or goggles for you, those sort of technically not opticians? I guess they sort of have opticians working there, but people that are often treating you and the eye test and the dispense as a separate process, and therefore it's causing pressure to keep up with these pricing in practice? It's something we're struggling with in the UK at the minute.
Yeah, no, it's horrible. It's horrible. We have that element, but we also have private equity. So this is where I tell people, I think it's a race to the bottom. I don't want to fight for price because they're going to win every time. I want quality. So in my office, I don't have any Luxottica products. I have only small independent lines. I have very high quality, fantastic warranties. Most of our frames will be like the best hinges you can find in the world. And so I will tell patients, we won't be the cheapest, but we don't want to be the cheapest. We want to be the best pair of glasses you'll ever find. Now, there are people out there that are doing the race to the bottom, and that's the hill they want to die on. So they are going to be very high volume, they're going to focus on numbers only. I can't do that because I can't find frames cheaper than they're selling them, right? But that's where I almost think that pressure you're talking about, that's where it's going to form us into an even stronger field. That's where we're going to get really freaking good at specialty contact lenses and really, really good at dry eye and really, really good at vision therapy. And there will be the boutiques that survive that, because not everyone wants the cheap online experience. In my community, people are starting to seek me out for the high-end experience. They want it to be more of a customized frame. They want to spend for the quality. So I don't think that'll ever go away. Just like across the street, there's a guy that has $80 socks, right? There will always be a market for $80 socks. And so I don't personally want to race to the bottom. And so I think that the rest of us will agree. Like there will be pockets of us that push the profession forward. Now, private equity is something that I did not mention, but it is kind of a really big deal, at least in the States right now. It's kind of like how you very rarely see an independent pharmacy. All pharmacies are in drugstores or grocery stores now. There are very few independent pharmacies left. And that happened to pharmacy is the best description. A lot of these huge companies are coming in and buying private offices. Like myself, I probably get private equity solicitation every 3 months, people trying to buy my office. And what they do is they come in and basically turn it into a corporation. They turn it into a lens crafters. And so the private office is dying. And a lot of us independent doctors are trying to band together to stop this private equity spread. But the problem is they are paying astronomical prices. So it's really kind of hard to turn away. If you're a doctor that's about to retire and they're coming and offering you double or triple what your practice is worth, of course you're going to say yes. But it's a really big deal. I'm one of the few private offices left in my area.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's going to be weird. It's going to be weird to watch and see what happens. I think we might have a couple chats down here. So let me check this out.
Yeah.
Okay. Tracks in undergrad for optometry like pre-med. When I was in undergrad, there were not. I was considered pre-med. I took all the same classes as my pre-med counterparts. I did the same study course. That's why I was totally blindsided when I started practicing and people asked me if I just couldn't get into medical school. And I was like, I did the exact same thing as them and got better grades. Of course I could have got into medical school, but it's a thing. But I don't know if there probably are pre-med. I don't know. I can't answer that question. I think I'm too far out. When I was in undergrad, there were only 16 optometry schools as an option. So what I did was I just went through and found the one school I wanted to go to. I personally only applied to one optometry school. And I just looked on their website at their required classes. And then I went back to my college and I looked at what required classes, if I took those required classes, which degree would I be closest to? And that was biology. And that's how I landed on biology. There was not even a pre-optometry club. I was in the pre-med clubs. How does someone get dry eye? A dry eye is it's more common if you take all of the glaucoma patients and all of the macular degeneration patients combined. Dry eye is even more than that. It's a huge deal that no one's taking care of. So you can get it from different medications, birth controls and allergy meds and high blood pressure meds. Basically, any medication that exists can cause dry eye. Looking at screens all day long, we are not blinking, and blinking is the pump for our oil glands. So it's like you're training your tear pumps to go out. And so everyone's drying up. And then once those glands are gone, they are gone until we can get this stem cell injection stuff going. Omega-3s, our diets are terrible. So most of us are really low in omega-3s, really high in omega-6s, and that causes a systemic inflammation. And then all kinds of different conditions cause dry eye. So like diabetes causes dry eye, and thyroid disorders cause dry eye. Any autoimmune disorder causes dry eye. And we're not sleeping enough. I mean, there is an unlimited cause of dry eye. So that's actually the tricky part. And I think that's why most eye docs don't like to tackle it, because it is so complicated and multifaceted, and every aspect of your life can be causing dry eye. And so we have to fix each of those aspects. It's a lot of work. I usually tell my dry eye patients to give me at least 6 to 12 months to even make a dent. So it's kind of it's a process. But to me, it's a fun process. When you have a patient that goes from not being able to get out of bed because their eyes are so dry to being able to go on vacation with their grandkids is absolutely life-changing. Okay, so does getting patients referred to you help with maintaining your patient base? Yes, but Jenna, where I am now is only 750 square feet. So we are now bursting at the seams, and we can only go so high. So what I'm working on now is a second business. I'm going to pull my dry eye out completely and put it right down the street into like this dry eye med spa. And then I have to regrow my primary office. So it's kind of this, I draw this growth curve because in my brain, this is how the business side for me works. So I will be working on, let's see. So say I'm working on patient growth. Let's see if I can do this. Grow, grow, grow. And then we reach a capacity where we can't grow anymore. So then I do a big move, like open a second location, and then we're flatlining again. And so we have to grow, grow, grow. And I'm sure very quickly I'm going to get to another turning point in business to where I have to do something else major, flatline again, and grow again. So it's this constant living, breathing thing. If you own your own practice, you never get to the point of completion. It's always active and going. And I feel like in any kind of medical career, that's going to be the case also, because you're going to constantly be learning new things. There's a statistic I read that says that it takes 17 years for something found in medical research to get to practice medicine. And I think 17 years is way too long of a gap. So if you're constantly reading and constantly researching, it's how you stay ahead of things. But you are a forever student, which jokes on me, because I don't know if you remember, I never wanted to go to college to begin with. And I've literally not stopped learning and giving presentations and reading articles. It's crazy. It's constant. All right, pre-optometry track. Okay, there are now pre-optom tracks. Very cool. What was my experience like at ICO? Okay, so I knew I wanted to go to ICO because I wanted to be close to home and in a big city. And I just told myself, if I don't get in this year, that's okay. I'm going to tell them in the interview process, you will see me again next year. So you might as well just take me now. And I didn't have to say that. It worked. But I had a great experience. I got to explore the city enough. It was very expensive. It's a private school. So had I gone to OSU, I probably would have saved a decent amount of money. It's kind of crazy expensive. But it was fantastic. I passed all of my boards, no problem. So I think that they prepared me really well. We had a very high board pass rate. So what happens is you go through optometry school, you have to get certain grades for them to pass you, but then you get to 3 rounds of national boards. Round 1 is a 2-day standardized on paper test. And then 2 and 3, one's more clinical on a computer. So it might give you patient cases. So part 1's really a book heavy, right? So they ask you optics questions and biochem questions and all of the basics. And then part 2 is a practical in person. You have to give an eye exam to a patient. They video record you. You have to check every box. So you have to pass all 3 rounds before you can practice, right? And the school. So I passed boards, no problem. I feel like it was a successful experience. I got into a residency, no problem. I'll talk about residency too. Is optometry
heavy math or more on the sciences? Oh, my headphones just died. Okay, can you guys still hear me? Yes, okay. It wasn't heavy math to me, but I love math. Most of the math was in optics. So optics are like, how does light bend in the eye? And that is really important to understand the better 1 or 2 things. Once you're in practice, the hardest math you'll do is adding quarters, and that becomes second nature. But in optometry school itself, most of the math was just optics, just a few classes. And that is things like how light bends in air, how light bends in water, how light bends with different lenses. I didn't think it was a lot of math, but I love math. So take that with a grain of salt. Will you expand on your experience of having your own practice? If I could do it over again, would you choose private practice? Okay, so I would love to. This is what I talk to with optometry students the most, so I could talk for hours on this. I knew that I wanted to do private practice from day one. I really do like business. I was not planning on going to college because I thought I was just going to own my own business. And so I thought and that is an accurate thought. You can own your own successful business without a degree. So I thought it would be silly to go to college for no reason, right? So I kind of always knew I wanted to be in the business world. I would definitely do it again, but I like to talk a lot about this because my sister, if you remember, I purchased my sister's office. She hated business ownership. So I think it's really important to know before you go into private practice, if you like the business and entrepreneur side. One of the books I listed in my resource slide was E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And that identifies the different types of worker. So an entrepreneur, a manager, and a technician. I think everyone should read that because it's not just about business. It helps you understand what type of worker you want to be. And my sister was very much a technician. She likes to do the job. She likes to see the patients. I'm 100% an entrepreneur. I like to build and create and invest and get new systems and implement these new research things I find. I like to make the decisions, and she hated making the decisions. So that's really, really important to understand before you just glorify private practice ownership. It doesn't need to be the gold standard. But if I had to do it all over again, would I do it all over again? 100%. I realize how much I love it. Actually, when I got out of optometry school, I had my daughter. So I was an associate just 3 days a week for a couple of years while my daughter was a baby. And I felt like I made the wrong career choice because I was in total burnout. I dreaded going to work. I hated that just turn and burn mentality. It was horrible. It sucked my soul out. And then I bought my office, and it's very, very stressful, but it is like a good stressful. I work on my business all the time. I love it. I have snow days. I still come in because it's my baby. It's my creation. So I would do it 100% over again. In fact, I would even consider you can be an optometry office owner without being an optometrist, right? So like in retrospect, it's a good thing I know everything I know, but I don't technically even have to be an optometrist to own my office, right? If I just had optometrists working for me. And I love that side of it so much that I could have taken that career path, really. But I don't think I would know how to successfully own an optometry office without the skill set of optometry. Okay, if you could go back, would you do residency again? Yeah, let me talk about residency. I've heard some people say it wasn't worth it because there's no pay increase, but others say it helped them specialize. Would you pick ocular disease again or another? So let me tell you, my residency path was similar to my going to college path. I was 100% not going to do a residency because I knew I wanted to own my own practice. And I was like, I'm going to be my own boss. Why would I need to make a better resume for myself? That's silly. In my head, the only benefit of doing a residency was to be a resume builder. And that's where your mind shift of being an internal student to being in a career needs to separate. So like I said, I take online classes now as to benefit my career, not to build my resume or to get any kind of other certificates or letters behind my name. So with the residency, I was 100% not going to do a residency. I was sick of school. I was ready to get out and start working and start making money. And my fourth year rotations, my attending was an ophthalmologist. She was my emergency medicine attending, and we were in our little group of like 7 students, and she was like, out of nowhere, Carly, are you going to do a residency? And I was like, no, I'm going to go into private practice. And she said, well, you'll sell yourself short if you don't. And I don't know why that was like always in the back of my head. And I was like, well, I guess I'm going to sell myself short then, because I am not going to do a residency. Then I did my next rotation in fourth year was at the VA here in Cincinnati. I'm talking so much. And the chief called me into her office. And so I was thinking, oh my God, what did I do? And she was like, are you going to do a residency? And I was like, no, I'm going into private practice. No way. I'm going straight to work. And she just kind of laughed and I left. And then I went to my next externship site in Colorado. And it was in December. It was the day residency applications were due. And the chief from the VA texted me and said, hey, I haven't gotten your residency application yet. And I was like, I told you I'm not doing a residency. And so I called her and I was laughing because I was like, what are the hours? Do I get insurance? What's the pay? What are we talking about here? What does a residency involve? I had never even looked into it because I was 100% not going to do it. And the day the applications were due, I was like, okay, fill me in. What the heck? Why should I do a residency? And I ended up applying and I got into the residency, and I am so glad I did, because it's still a $35,000 raise from making nothing, right? And then I learned so much. I feel so much more comfortable managing retinal detachments and diabetics. Other eye doctors just refer them out if they don't feel comfortable with it. And I feel totally comfortable managing whether I should see them back in 3 months or send them for same-day surgery. It doesn't scare me at all. So I feel like I'm a much better doctor. And I already mentioned that I will get 6 o'clock Sunday night calls of a 3 or 4-year-old with a lacerated cornea. I feel pretty comfortable managing it because I've experienced a lot in that residency. Plus, one thing I did not anticipate was that I would want to get into the public speaking world, and having the residency set me up for success to get my fellowship. It was very easy getting my fellowship because I had this residency. And I have found that it's a lot easier to have become a validated speaker, if you will, if you have all of these things. So I encourage people to do residencies because it keeps the doors open. I know now how much my career goals have changed from what I thought they would be when I was in optometry school. They're so much greater. I thought I would just want to have a practice and that's it. Now I just have all these huge ideas, and I really feel like having done the residency allows me to do whatever I want now, right? Okay, vision therapy and neuro rehabilitation helped me when I had 2 concussions. The tools from vision therapy still help me to this day. Zoom University, couldn't agree more. So I considered vision therapy because it's so life-changing, not because I necessarily had a passion for it, but I feel like the world needs more vision therapists. Vision therapy is a game changer for people that need it. So when I get to, in the chair in a comprehensive eye exam, identify a patient that would benefit from vision therapy, and then they go and then they have experiences like that, even though I'm not the one doing vision therapy, just uncovering these problems has made me insanely passionate for the field because I know how important it is. And so now not only do I talk to students and I talk to optometry students and I talk to other doctors about dry eye, I'll talk to moms groups and PTOs and school boards about the importance of annual eye exams. And if you notice a high risk kid that's ADHD or a problem child, they could just have a binocular vision disorder. Let me give them an eye exam, and then we can just absolutely change the projection of this child's life. It's amazing. Okay, optometry salaries. So absolutely, this is very variable. It's going to depend on what you want to do. So at the low, let's talk about associate salary first. If you're an associate, which means you work for someone else, it can be anywhere from, I'd say on the low end, this was when I was looking, so it's probably a little higher, but optometry does not get like raises like they should. But I would say anywhere on the low end around 80,000 and the high end like 150 if you work for someone else. And then if you own your own practice, it's a whole different game. So my first year in practice ownership, I made negative 42,000. So I had to take a massive pay cut because the office gets paid before you get paid, right? Your staff gets paid first, your loans get paid first, your landlord gets paid first, and then whatever's left over at the end of the day is what you get. And so for me, I had to work outside of the practice for a little while. So most of the time, if you're a private practice owner in the first few years, you're doing what's called moonlighting. And so it's like working here and working at a lens crafters, or working here and working at a hospital to be able to eat, because you can't eat off of negative 42,000. But I know private practice owners now that have a couple locations and they're killing it and making 600,000. And then I know one specific doctor who's totally crushing it in all aspects. This is like the high end, right? So this is not standard at all. But he has a very busy clinic that he's probably making a few $100,000 from, I would say. And then he has an amazing speaking career, speaking to other eye doctors, speaking for companies. He even gets asked to go to the White House and speak. So he's a very well-known optometrist, and he makes $600,000 or $700,000 just from his speaking. And then he makes a few $100,000 from his practice. So he's probably closer to $1 million. But that's like the very isolated cases. I would say in the private practice world, once you've established yourself, you're probably in the like 150 to, I know quite a few successful optometrists that are in the 300,000, 400,000, 500,000, but it takes a lot of work and time to get there. Okay. When I applied to optometry school, did the interview ever ask why optometry, not medicine? Not for me. They will ask you why optometry, but I don't think that they like to pit. I think the whole optometry versus MD, we're really trying to break that. They might ask why optometry versus anything else, right? But those are the very common questions that you would want to have prepped anyway. How is optometry school set up? Is it similar to medical school? Yes. So actually, this is kind of cool, and I don't talk about this enough. When I was in optometry school, my boyfriend at the time was in med school. So I actually compared our courses very directly, and at the time, our first year was almost identical. We have very basic anatomy, physiology, biochem, the foundation, right? And then second and third year, you might get into ocular anatomy instead of just anatomy. And like, we really know the structures of the eye. I say that we spend 4 years, a lot of eyeball, a little body. They spend 4 years, a lot of body, a little eyeball. So that's kind of the reverse, but the course load's very, very similar. And then third year, you start to get into clinicals. It's exactly the same. And then fourth year's rotations. So third year is upper level binocular vision, upper level optics, ocular farm, upper level optometry specific with maybe 1 or 2 days clinical. And then fourth year's all clinical. And you do rotations. My school did 4 rotations. So I did 1 in-house in Chicago. I did 1 in Cincinnati. I did 1 in Lexington, and I did 1 in Colorado. And you have to do different specialties. So I had 1 that was advanced disease, 1 that was contact lens, 1 that was cornea, low vision, and vision therapy. Is it possible to have more than one specialty? Yes. Okay, so that's where I'm pulling dry eye out and I'm plopping it right down the street. And then I'm going to start getting into myopia control and neurovision. There's a really awesome piece of equipment that I want to buy called NeuroLens. So it does these really cool eye movement trackings, and we can create contour prism lenses, and they're just life-changing for people. So I want to get into NeuroLens, and I want to get into myopia control to try to eliminate high prescriptions. How cool will that be? I currently work as an opto tech, and I know with ophthalmologists, they use medical insurance. Yes. Insurance is a nightmare. So there's medical insurance and there's vision insurance. And so if you're in the race to the bottom, like we were talking about earlier, and you're really trying to compete with these online retailers and make it the cheapest you can, that's vision insurance. Vision insurance is a nightmare. They are the worst to deal with. They are the worst to try to profit from. Most of the vision plans pay you less than it costs you to see the patient. So it's literally a net negative unless the patient buys from you. So you're like desperately clinging to the patient buying contact lenses or glasses. That is the only way you can keep the doors open. Medical insurance is also a nightmare, but it's a little bit less of a nightmare as vision insurance. I am down to only taking one vision insurance. You really have to look at vision insurance like a marketing tool versus an income tool. They don't pay you anything. It's literally to be able to get the patient in your door. So if you're brand new starting out and you need patients to find you, you might take every vision plan because they're going to see your name on the vision plan. They're going to come in and see how great you are. And then you slowly drop the vision insurances because they suck the money right out of your office, and you have to profit to be able to keep the doors open. In my stance is I feel an ethical obligation because private practices are dying. And so I feel like people want choices. Not everyone wants to go to a corporate office and be just another number. Some people would rather pay a little more, or sometimes not even more. There's just this perception that it costs more. But I really feel like we need to keep private practice alive in some capacity. So I am slowly eliminating vision insurance because they are a horrible, evil conglomerate. I'm down to iMed only. That's the next to go. As soon as I pull dry eye out and I stabilize again, then I'm going to drop iMed. But medical insurance is really, really horrible too. So at this new dry eye location, I don't think I'm going to take any medical insurance or vision insurance because they don't cover it anyway for dry eye. And I will have more of a membership model, concierge type, maybe like so much a month gets you so much care, right? So there's a primary care doc across the street, and she has this membership model. It's maybe $200 a month, and you get so many exams with her and so much blood work per year. Because insurance is a giant battle here in the States. Do patients use vision insurance? So for my practice, no. We have a pretty high iMed population, but we have this really cool technology to where we can pull out of network benefits for the patient. So we can make it very user-friendly for the patient and us, and the only person losing is the insurance company. So things like that are coming. I think that in the next 5 or 10 years, optometry, as we know, it's going to be flipped on its head, and we'll see where it lands, right? I'm working as pre-reg optom temporary resident. Do you think you could provide the same level of care to continuity to your patients working as a mobile optom? So I did this for a little bit. I would go to the VA nursing homes, and we did like a mobile clinic. And it's better than nothing, but it takes a very special kind of doctor. It's really, really tricky to work in those environments. I don't love it, but that's just because I don't love glaucoma and MacDegen, and all those patients have glaucoma and MacDegen, and that's just not the specialty I like. I don't know if I didn't love it because of the mobile aspect though. I don't think that it was tricky, but it didn't dissuade me. It's trickier though. It's a harder exam for sure. How competitive is optometry school? So when I was applying, I felt like it was as competitive as the medical schools around me. If you look at the numbers, it's variable on acceptance rates. But for me, when I was going, there were only 16 schools. So I felt like it was pretty competitive because there just weren't that many schools to even get into. Tips for undergrad students, definitely job shadow, right? So this is awesome. You really want to make sure you like it before you spend all that time and money for a career that you hate. And then getting those leadership positions in those pre-med type pre-optometry groups, those are huge too. If you could go back and change your profession, why not? I think I would have really liked derm. I really do. But I found a happy accident in the aesthetics world. I feel like I get to dabble in derm enough to where it's wild. It's wild. I never expected to have the two fields merge like this, but I don't know. I'm really liking where I am in my career. So I think I would still go back and pick it. It's been pretty awesome. Now, if you would have asked me that question my first or second year out, probably would have said a different answer because I was working in a corporate setting that sucked the soul out of my body, but I really love what I'm doing right now. Did you get to choose where you had a rotation? Every school's different, but what my school did was a lottery system. And it was actually kind of a fun event. So we pulled like an all-nighter there. We had one of the biggest classes. There was 160 of us. Some optometry schools are as small as like 20 or 30 per class. So mine was a really big class and we all piled in the auditorium and you got randomly assigned 4 different numbers for the 4 different rotation sites. And so we all came kind of prepared, like in a dream world. I want to go to this rotation in summer, this rotation in fall, this rotation winter, this rotation spring. And then as they're reading off the number, that student picks. And so if they pick your pick, it's out. So you also have to come back up with 2, 3, 4 different options to match, to figure out when and where and how, because we had all of these requirements. We had to do cornea, we had to do vision therapy, we had to do low vision, we had to do advanced disease, we had to do 1 rotation in the school. So we had a lot of requirements and we had like totally random lottery and you're just going through and hoping it works out. At the end, a couple people had trouble. So then they go and work with the school on that. And then my sister went to SEO in Memphis and she had a totally different system. So I can only speak on ICO. What was that, like 10 years ago, I think. So ICO 10 years ago did a really fun lottery system. It was wild. It was a wild night. Everyone brought in like pizza and beer. It was really crazy. My externships worked out perfectly and most people I know did. As far as online courses go, are you aware of entry-level optometry-related courses available online? Yes, there's actually a lot of courses. So there are different training courses for, I have my staff do them, right? So I go through my association. I'm sure you can just Google, but like technician courses, you can become a certified tech. So you could take those courses, optician courses, and then just like basic 101. Absolutely. I don't know if it would benefit you. I don't know if it would benefit you though, because you'll learn all of that stuff in optometry school. For time's sake, I think we're gonna have, okay. Yeah, see, I told you that the Q&As always take up the most time. Yeah, Dr. Rose, thanks. Opportunity to share you. You are so welcome. You are so welcome. See, I always have so much fun with these. And thank you guys for turning your videos on, because I can't tell you how many Zooms I do with other eye doctors and I'm looking at black screens. I'm like, what are you guys doing?
Okay, so before everybody